right. Well, welcome. We have registrants from over 39 US states, as well as Washington, D.C., and countries in Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America joining us tonight. So thank you for being here. My name is Meg Brooks Swift, and I'm a Senior Associate Dean of Admissions at Bowdoin College. And I'm excited to talk you through some thoughts on application writing. I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Dean Claudia Marroquin, and she will be responding to any questions while I speak. So please feel free to put any questions in the Q&A. I am not going to be able to see hands raised or respond to anything until the end of the presentation, but she will be furiously responding to questions if they come up. And if folks do have questions about the recording, we will be making this available to everyone who is registered, and it will be sent out within the next week or so. So I am going to go ahead and get started and want to speak about our goals for tonight. We are going to emphasize why your writing is important, what you should hope to convey in the many parts of the application that require writing. We are going to show you what all of those pieces in the applications emphasize your writing. And then we will reveal tips for effective self-presentation. So again, feel free to put any questions in the Q&A and we will get those answered. So why does your writing matter? How you present yourself in your application is really helpful for us to get an understanding of how you will handle college level academic work, as well as how you will interact with the many different pieces of extracurricular life. Short of having an interview, and many schools do not offer them, this is your time to have a conversation with us. We want to get to know you in a very complete and nuanced way. And as such, we give you many opportunities to provide us with that information. So what should you hope to convey? First and foremost, we want to see strong writing skills. So we're looking for good grammar, proper spelling, a mix of sentences, descriptive vocabulary. We're looking for good judgment. And what that means is we're wanting to be shown things rather than told things. We're looking for appropriate tact and decisions of what you choose to share with us. And we're looking to get a sense of your perspective and who you are and what's important to you as it relates to values and ideas. We hope that we will see some self-awareness and empathy, and we are looking to learn more about you from the many ways that you write. So where does your writing appear? I think the most obvious are the personal statements. Many schools also have supplemental essays, and we're going to talk about these in greater detail tonight. But in these next slides, we'll walk through how each section influences or conveys your writing and discuss why it really matters and what you should hope to convey. I can tell you a bit of what we see and give you the tools to consider your self-presentation throughout the application. So in our review process, when we get to the background, this is the first part of the application we read. It establishes important context for our understanding of you as an applicant. For you, it's an opportunity to ease into the polished self-presentation you'll aim to deliver throughout the application. So what does the background include? We have the profile where you provide personal information, your language, geography, and citizenship. It's a chance for you to describe a bit about your family, who you live with, parents and or guardians, siblings. And it allows you a number of places to talk a bit about your education. What honors you've received, community-based organizations you may have been a part of, your future plans. So make sure in all of these pieces that you probably don't think of as true writing, that you're being detailed and thorough, that you're capitalizing all proper nouns and checking your spelling. If you start off strong, it will help to ensure that your application appears professional. So once we've established information about your personal and academic background, we've dive into your activities as you've presented them. So this is where we learn about how you spend time out of the classroom. This can include everything from your responsibilities to your commitments to your interests to experiences you've had outside of the classroom. Keep in mind that there is no right or wrong list of activities. Everyone is going to have their own, and we are looking to learn more about you. But also keep in mind that your activities section is more than a bulleted list. It's a chance for you to show strong writing skills, good judgment, and perspective. We'll show some examples in a bit, but you have up to 150 characters to describe some of the activities. So one thing to keep in mind is that we are really hoping to understand how you spend your time in your activities section. You may have substantial responsibilities at home that take up most of your time, and that's impressive in its own right. You don't need to aim to have every one of those 10 lines complete. We are looking to see how you come across, whether you have 3 activities or 10. So again, this is about you as an individual who is sharing with us how you spend your time. So I'm going to focus on some examples here to give you a sense for those of you who have yet to start working on your activities section, what you will be asked to do for every activity. So I'm going to show you a number of examples, and I want to sort of emphasize what different pieces you need to include here. For every activity, you'll have a drop-down list of categories. So in this case, it is student government or politics. You'll be able to indicate what grades you would contribute to this program, whether it is a school to point out right there that that was using 2 capitals that may not necessarily make sense. And we've abbreviated representative, and we haven't taken the opportunity to describe what being a class rep is. Here's a more polished version of the same activity where the student has spelled out class representative and then given us a bit of context. They were voted class representation. They are part of the student voice committee. And then this final example is probably the strongest, where they have been very specific in that title of the fact that they are part of the student voice committee as a class rep, that they were elected, and how they are interacting with other people. So this is just a really nice way of taking advantage of the 150 characters you have to highlight your writing and give us a sense of what your role is. So I want to go on and show you another example, just to give a sense of how you can leverage your writing in your activities list to really show us your strength as a candidate and maybe even some humor. So this cashier bagger, we learned that it's a summer job at the local grocery store. Here we're getting a little bit more specific in the second example that it's the greengrocer and that this person was actually promoted to cashier. And this final example, again, gives some perspective on the role this person has played. And I love that they're able to add a little bit of their personality. The earnings went toward a new bike, which means 10 extra minutes of sleep now that I don't walk to school. So it's a nice way to, I wanted to emphasize this to just show how you can have your personality coming through. So after reading about your activities, we move on to your personal statement. And many people regard this as the best way to learn about the student within an application. This is typically a 650 word or so chance to walk in your shoes. It's your chance to have a conversation with us. Formatting doesn't always carry over, so if you are starting this in a Google Doc or a Word, make sure when you paste it in that all the formatting will make sense. Um, but even more than what you wrote in your activities, this is where you need to really showcase the proficient writing skills, good judgment, and perspective. And the personal statement is really what covers a lot of the heavy lifting in your application. Focusing on the Common App, I'm going to provide you what the prompts are for this year. Um, these prompts may shift slightly year to year. So if you are not a senior and you are looking down a future application cycle, one thing you can always count on is question number 7, which would be share an essay on any topic of your choice. So just wanted to sort of put this out there so people can get a sense of the types of questions. It's really an attempt to learn more about you and allow you to focus on a topic that you want to share with us. So as you're thinking about how to approach your essay, there are a few things to keep in mind. It's really important to choose a prompt that resonates with you, not the one you think we want to see. And as you can imagine, there are going to be many different admissions officers that are reading your application. And to try to cater to what every single one of them might want to read is a challenge. So ultimately, it's most important to write about something that is meaningful for you. To the same end, you want to reflect on your own experience, not someone else's. This is about you, not about your grandmother. It's really important to try to zoom in on a topic rather than covering a very wide berth and trying and skimming the surface. It can be much more effective to focus on the present rather than going back in deep into the past or speaking just about the future. And as you've heard from English teachers over the years, it is best to show and not to tell. And probably the most important message out there is to edit and proofread and then do it again. So as you select your topic and work toward a final draft, it's important to keep a few more things in mind. Your personal statement is not a cover letter. This should not be prose of lining up all of your activities. It's okay to use dialogue to or to start in the middle of an action and other compelling writing techniques you have used to convey your point. But I want to focus a little bit on the concept of overused and versus underused topics. So, as you can imagine, we read many, many essay topics every year, and there's some that we read a lot of: the summer camp counselor, the service trip, the championship game. Now, totally fine if you decide you'd like to write about one of these topics and you have every chance of doing it well. It just means that your application readers may hold you to a higher standard because yours will be one of many essays about how much you love your camp or the lessons of teamwork you learned during that championship game. So I push you to think a little bit about some of the underused topics. Sometimes the commonplace events, those mundane moments in your life, can become exquisite essays when rendered with care. So if you're struggling to come up with the right topic and the topic that you feel really conveys who you are as a person, as an applicant, consider frequently overlooked ones, like a job, like your family dinner time, a momentary experience. Remember that it's not about standing out. It's really about letting us in. This is your chance to share more information with us about who you are. I think there's also this idea that you have to write about hardship or a challenge. And I really sort of push you to think on another path than this. We are trying to get to know you, and there are many different values that we're hoping to learn about you, and we turn to you in terms of presenting that. And try not to over edit your writing. Um, Keep your thesaurus as maybe a distant cousin rather than your very best friend. You want to include rich and varied vocabulary, but you want your personal statement to sound natural and like you wrote it, as opposed to being pulled from a series of other sources. So while it's great to find a trusted friend or a mentor to review your drafts, make sure that the edits that they provide don't eliminate your voice. This is your personal statement, after all, and we look forward to reading it for that very reason. At this point in your application, we've already learned a lot about you, about your background, about how you spend your time, and what you find meaningful. We're also going to learn even more from your transcript and what your teachers are writing about you in their recommendations. So, when we talk about application writing relative to the additional information section, it's important to remember that this is a space to round out the picture if you feel anything is missing. So, this is not a space where you should feel compelled to add more. With that said, since 2020, all students have had an opportunity to indicate how COVID-19 impacted them. And I know for many of you, you were probably in sixth or seventh grade when COVID began, and your time may not, in the classroom, may not feel as though it was really impacted now that you are a junior or senior in high school. So feel free to use this section if you think it is relevant, but it is certainly not an area where you have to go into any detail at all. Then there is a larger section on information, additional information that you could use to describe many different things, whether there are changes at home that you've experienced, disruptions, maybe you've experienced some significant personal challenges. Sometimes students will talk about classes that they weren't able to take due to scheduling or some other academic piece that they don't feel is highlighted others in other places. You could also attach a document like a resume. But again, I want to just emphasize that you want to think very carefully about whether you've already included this information elsewhere in your application. Believe it or not, as application readers, we are attentive and really only need to see something once to make note of it. So don't make more work for yourself if you've already provided us with context for some of these pieces in other parts of your application. So many colleges, not all, many colleges offer supplemental essays. And this is your opportunity to identify how you see yourself connecting at an individual college, fitting in, and sharing some of the values of that particular institution. Supplemental essays might ask you to respond to a prompt related to the ethos of the institution, or maybe specifically saying why you want to attend. So, in either case, depending on what the questions are, it's important that you really take time to think about what that prompt is asking you and to draft unique supplemental essays rather than simply copying and pasting from one school to the next. And if you do copy and paste, and we know that happens, just make sure that you change the school name so that you are adding the appropriate school name to the school that you are applying. So paying attention to what is optional versus required and embracing the suggested opportunities to showcase your writing can be a really nice way to give further information about who you are and your connection to the school. Now, because I represent Bowdoin, I'm going to talk quickly about what the Bowdoin supplemental pieces of our application are. Um, the first one is we ask you to tell us how you first learned about Bowdoin. Again, it's like the activities, it's only 140 characters. We also ask you to reflect on what we call the offer of the college. This was a poem written by our seventh president back in the early 1900s. And you pick a line and you tell us which line of the offer resonates most with you. And then the optional piece is you can spend up to 250 words talking about why that line really speaks to you. And again, you don't need to repeat information that exists earlier in the Common App, but we love for this to have any Bowdoin specific information that you think we should know. And this is a good place to be able to share that with us. We do have a second optional supplemental essay that if you choose to share anything about your unique experience and perspectives that you could bring to the Bowdoin campus and community, we ask you to also write a 250 word essay there. Believe it or not, email correspondence can be a great way to further your writing skills and demonstrate to us how you communicate. You can make an impression, sometimes bad, ideally good, in your correspondence. We know that many of you are reaching out to all of us as admissions officers, and we welcome that. But just be thoughtful as you are writing those emails. This is an important time to show your writing skills and your good judgment. And your personality can come through just the way it has in the activities section and the essays. So just a couple of rules as you're thinking about this. You want to ask yourselves a few questions before you reach out to an admissions officer. Am I contacting the right person? Have I done sufficient research? And does my message look and sound professional? And to that end, I want to show you a couple of examples. So here is the first one. You can see it's pretty general. We're just saying hello. We haven't addressed it to anyone. I'm wondering if you offer virtual interviews. Now, this seems like a question that is very easy to find an answer for on the website. And so if we receive something like this, we can certainly point you to the right place, but it's probably worth your time, an extra couple minutes, finding out about virtual interviews, for instance, on our website. The second email correspondence is one where I think we get a much better sense of who the person is. They have identified who they are writing to. They started out identifying themselves and what school they go to, and acknowledge that I am their regional representative. And they are asking a question that they probably couldn't have found online. They had a virtual interview last week with Matt Smith, and they want to be able to write to him and thank him. And so this is a really nice way of seeing a further email correspondence, and one, of course, that we're happy to answer. So this is just another way to have a positive light when you're reaching out to schools. So I want to talk just briefly about artificial intelligence. As admissions officers, we appreciate that it is out there and it is not going away. I know that some schools may specifically be checking to see if essays use ChatGPT or another form of AI. But we also appreciate that artificial intelligence is just one more way students may receive help in the writing of the application process. We know that some students are getting help from teachers or older siblings or their parents. Artificial intelligence may just be another form of assistance. But what is most important in these essays and where artificial intelligence may lead you astray is what we really want is we want to hear your voice. We want the words and the thoughts and the tone and the writing of a 17 or 18-year-old who is writing this. And with that, I want to sort of emphasize that we all want to have one sentiment out there, which is you can do it. And here are a few tips as you continue with this process. Make sure you plan ahead, especially for schools that have different supplemental essays. It's really good to have a list of all of those essays and what additional essays outside of that main 650-word essay is so that you can start early and you can draft really thoughtful, small essays to add in the supplemental part. Do your research. Ask questions when you need to. As admissions officers, we welcome getting emails and responding to the questions that students have. And probably like every English teacher has ever said to you, use that revision process. We want to see something that has clearly been drafted and put aside and come back to. And we know that you're only human, and we are looking to see sort of what is important for you to share with us, and that is the message that we are excited to take away. So only you can write your story. You are the most reliable narrator, and keep that in mind as you are working on these different essays. So with that, I am gonna stop my screen share, and I can go ahead and see if we have any further questions. Looks like there have been a lot already responded to. Is it better to use additional information as a bulleted point list or a full essay? Um, I think this really depends on what you are trying to convey in the additional information section. If you are using bullet points, that is certainly fine. Again, I would just make sure that the bullets are spelled right and the grammar is appropriate. If you are trying to describe something that may be more than a simple list, sometimes it's helpful to have a full prose used there. But I don't think I really your personality will come through, and so whichever you feel most comfortable with. Can I write about my gap year in additional information section? And does it need to be written as creative as personal statement or straightforward? So you can certainly write about your gap year in your additional information section. I think the question to ask is whether that is something that you would want to use as your main essay. We will know that you have taken a gap year, and it's probably helpful to share with us in some way what you did in that year away, and whether that comes up in the activities section or as your main essay or as you're suggesting here in the additional information is really up to you. Okay, how does an admissions officer consider an application through regular decision versus early decision? So we are reviewing applications in the different rounds, early decision or regular decision, and we are looking for the same. We are evaluating the application in the exact same way. So we are looking for strong writing. We are looking to understand more about your values and your interests. And there's really nothing different about the early decision versus the regular decision as it comes to how we are evaluating your application. Okay, what kind of essays are the most helpful? Um, you know, I think the most helpful essays are the ones where we learn something new about you, where we hear about something told through your voice that is not apparent in the activities, that is not coming up in the teacher recommendations. There is a sense of trying to get another side of who you are. So ultimately, we're looking for essays that you're excited to share with us. Something that, I go back to think of yourself having a conversation with us. What is something you'd really like us to know about you? Okay. Oh, this is an interesting question. Do you look at applicants' social media accounts, and is that something that some applicants link? So we are not going to go in and look at social media accounts, though I know that some schools do. We are really busy during the review process, and trying to do that extra work is more time than we have in our day. Some people will provide links to different things that they have done, and if that is available to us, we will go and chase it down if it's provided to us, but it is certainly not a component for a required part of the application. Okay, does the Bowdoin application include any space to describe an extracurricular research endeavor? So this is something that we will not be able to send research out to faculty to have them look at. I have definitely seen some students submit an abstract. Um, it This is something that I think in the activities section you can provide some context for the type of research you have done. Um, and if you want to go into more detail, we are eager to see it. I think submitting a full research paper may be a bit much, just given the time limitations we have. All right. Thank you for all these great questions. I'm just quickly trying to read through. Um, Does Bowden prefer to see framing devices in personal statements to avoid monotony in the application review process? So I think we are looking to read about a student in terms of how they frame themselves. We know that we are going to see a great deal of variety in how students present themselves. And so there actually isn't a huge amount of monotony. I think it's monotonous when we're hearing the same thing from the student, that it's in the activities, and then the essay is a regurgitation of that, and then the optional essays may further build on that same point or points. So again, I think we're really putting the presentation on the student themselves. Okay. Okay, in the additional information section, can I share my LinkedIn profile in addition to my resume, or is it best to share only one? My personal preference is that you share just one. When you think of the number of applications we get, and if every person were to add one more thing for us to look at, it adds to the total volume of pieces of material that we are reviewing. Okay, which topics or stories would you consider underused for a personal statement? Um, I really believe that some of the most mundane topics, a conversation with a sibling, or a moment in a car ride with a parent, or a debate you have with a friend, a dinner time conversation, something that happens in lots of our lives, but that we're going to learn something unique about you and the different values and interests and curiosities that you bring. Okay. How can photography work be demonstrated in the optional art supplement? This, just as an aside, we accept art supplements, whether it's music, theater and dance, or visual arts, and you can find the specifications for each of those mediums on our website. We will get photographs submitted to us, and we will send those out to our photography professors who will evaluate that. So I would encourage you just to link to our application requirements, and you can learn more specifically about the exact specifications. Okay, how long is the reviewing process in the admissions office? We have at Bowdoin, we have two early decision rounds, November 15th and January 6th, or early decision one and early decision two, respectfully. And then you will hear within the month. And then our regular decision deadline is January 6th, and you typically hear between mid and late March. And so we need a little bit more time in the regular decision round to review everything because we have so many more applications at that point. Let's see. Should you aim at full length in all different essays? I think most importantly, I'm not sure I'm understanding this question exactly, but you really want to make sure that you are hitting the word count. And the application prompt will let you know what that is. Again, it's about 650 words for the main essay, and at least at Bowdoin, our supplemental essays are about 250 words. Okay, this is a great question. If creative writing is a big part of my application, who I am as a person, is there a way to submit some short stories as well? You are welcome to submit some creative writing. However, we are not in a place to send that out to faculty in the creative writing department. And so it will be read by the team of admissions officers who are reviewing your application. And, while many people love the creative writing side, it is not an area of expertise for many of us, though it does signal that interest and the passion that you have for that topic, which could be a really important part of your self-presentation. I wanted to address a question that came up a bit earlier about saying more about show, don't tell. I think this is something, and I'm dating myself going back to some early English classes I had, where the goal of the essay is not to explicitly state everything, but use descriptions and other ways of conveying your point and points by showing us. And whether it's using some examples or, language that isn't completely explicit in what you're trying to connect with us. Okay, can you attach a resume and can you provide a writing sample? So yes, you are welcome to attach a resume. I would encourage you, even if you attach a resume, that list of activities section is a really important place to also show your writing. And you can attach additional essays, though I think it's really important to respond to the prompts that the school has given you. Um, we hope that you're able to share everything you want to share with us through the optional essays. This could also, at Bowdoin, we offer optional interviews. And if you feel as though you have a lot more to share with us, then you are able to submit in the essay components. It may be an appropriate time to to have an interview so that you have the chance to talk with either an alumni or a senior interviewer. These can be done virtually. And it's a opportunity. We like to see it very much as a two-way street. So you have the chance to learn more about someone's Bowdoin experience, and they have a chance to learn a little bit more about you and what your interests are and what you're hoping to get out of college and maybe some of your best experiences in high school. So let's see. So many questions here. How do you evaluate one's leadership experience? Um, we are certainly looking for students who have leadership experience. We're also looking for students who have been good followers and are the core of various groups on campus. And so we are eager to see how students are describing their own role. I think more than understanding someone's leadership, it's probably equally, if not more important, to understand the role that students have played in any of the activities that they are involved with. We have over 120 different student organizations on campus. We clearly can't have leaders from representing every student out there. We want to make sure we have groups and clubs that have people who are going to be as much of a part of the progress of that organization as they are the leader. But we're eager to see how students present their own experience, whether it's as leadership or as a strong participant in a group. Okay, do you find that race ethnicity is a popular topic for a personal statement? Um, I think we definitely see students choosing to write about their own upbringing and the various experiences and opportunities and um, their own personal background. I think where these essays can be the strongest is where we are not just being told what your race or your ethnicity is, but we are understanding how that impacts you as a person and how the different perspectives that you have as a person will will be present on the campus. We are looking to bring a very diverse group of students from a huge variety of areas, whether that's socioeconomic status or racial status or political viewpoint. And we want to see how those opinions and backgrounds will impact our campus life. Okay. So many good questions. I'm sorry, just taking me a minute to read through some of these. Um, are applications read in group settings or by a single admissions officer? And what does the general process look like? We read all of our applications in a number of different ways. We will review as a team of readers going through an application. And then when we are in committee, the application is being looked at by the many different members of that individual admissions committee. So there are lots of different viewpoints that are looking and reviewing the different applications. It's a great question. So I know Claudia has responded to many questions about test optional. So I just want to put this out there for people who haven't asked this question who might be wondering. Bowdoin is test optional. We have been test optional since 1969. We were the first school to do it, and we do not plan to change this. And the reason they started way back then and the reason we continue today is that we really feel that between your transcript, the letters of recommendations from your teachers and from your counselor, from your own writing, that we are getting a very good sense of your ability to do the academic work at Bowdoin. And we don't want one morning of a testing center to dictate who you are, who you have been as a student, and who you may be in the future. Um, to this, just to let you know of statistics, the class of 2028 has 54% of that class being test optional. And that's the highest number we've seen, but we truly mean if you submit the test, we are going to look at it and we are going to consider it as part of your application. But if it is not in your application, we are not spending time trying to determine what your score may have been or assuming that your score is bad. So it's a decision that we give to you to make the determination of whether you feel as though your testing, whether it's the SAT or the ACT, is helpful as part of another piece of our holistic review. So, are you at a disadvantage if multiple students from your school are also applying to the same school? Um, no, you are certainly not at a disadvantage. We don't have quotas from individual schools or individual states. We do read by region, by territory. So you will have the same team of readers reviewing those applications from you and the other students from your school. But we, again, are looking for the most qualified applicants who we feel will bring the most as a class to campus. And so we are not going to have it limited by, admitting a restricted number from any school, or that also means that we are not going to necessarily admit someone from a campus, even if multiple students apply. Okay. I think there's another question about creative writing. As I said earlier, it is possible to submit creative writing, that we are not in a situation where it will be reviewed by faculty, but you are welcome to go ahead and submit it. Okay, can I still share my artwork even if I am not exceptionally good at it? So we do have these optional art supplements, and we encourage students who, whether you plan to major or minor in one of our 3 art departments, or you just hope to be involved in the extracurriculars, we encourage you to go ahead and submit it. Essentially, if art has been an important part of your life and you hope that it will be part of your life in some way in college, we would encourage you to go ahead and submit it. Oh, this is a good question. Would you consider writing about a family member a mundane or a common essay topic? I think some of the best essays can be about relationships. We can learn a lot about you and how you interact with others. I would just put the cautionary message out there that at the end of the day, I want to know more about you than your uncle. So make sure you're having your own perspectives and values come through, and it's not totally focused on that family members. Should students include articles they wrote for school newspapers or links to issues and archives, or neither? I think, again, this gets down to how much information you want to share with us and being judicious with what you share. If journalism and being part of your high school newspaper is something that is really important to you and you want to highlight one of your most favorite articles, go ahead and add a link or submit the article itself. I would be wary of submitting every article you have ever had published in your school newspaper, again, because of space and because of all of the reading that we are doing and the appreciation that we may not benefit from reading more than one. Okay, this is another part of our application, an optional piece that I will respond to. Can you give some specific advice for video applications? So one of our optional supplemental components is what we call the video response. And this is an opportunity after you have submitted your application. You can go back into your portal and you will be given a question. And you have about 30 seconds to think about the response and then up to 2 minutes to answer the question. So you are not being asked to go out and do any sort of fancy videography, but rather you are staring into your computer's video as though you were on a Zoom. And our hope here is just to learn more about you. Can be a little bit of a story time for us. We can pause on reviewing the writing and listen to a story that you want to tell us. These questions are not meant to quiz you on anything academic. It's really a chance to learn more about you, about interests of yours, maybe about the way you think. Um, some of the topics you might be asked is, if you were to wake up on a Saturday morning without plans, how might you spend your day? So again, we're trying to see what's important to you, see how you think. If the first one doesn't go well, you are able to delete it, but you will be given a second question, and you then have another 30 seconds to prepare and up to 2 minutes to respond. So we know it's not for everyone, but we're seeing a larger percentage every year submitting these, and they do provide a really nice, very authentic and personal part of the application. Okay. Um, Okay, is it preferable to explain why you couldn't take the SAT test in the additional section? No, this is not something that you need to provide. As I said, we are test optional. 54% of this year's incoming class did not submit testing scores, whether it was SAT or ACT. And so we are not expecting to see any reason for taking it or not taking it. If you choose to submit your scores, we will use that. But otherwise, we're not going to question why those are not in the application itself. Are there any specific interviews for international students, or are they for applicants in general? Yes, just a note again on our optional interviews. These can be done before you decide to apply to Bowdoin. So starting June 1st, before your senior year, you are eligible to do a virtual or an in-person interview. These can be done either with an alum, and this is around the world. So regardless of where you are located, you can do a virtual alumni interview or a virtual interview with a senior at Bowdoin. Or if you happen to be in Brunswick, Maine, and want to interview with a senior, you can choose to have that done in person. You can only do one of these interviews, but you have the choice of doing it virtually or in person. Okay. What is the minimum GPA that you will consider? So at Bowdoin, we review our applicants very holistically. So we are looking at all of the different components that come in your application, and we don't have minimums. GPAs are a very challenging topic to try to be consistent about, because you will see schools that have a 4.0, a 5.0, a 6.0, a 10.0. Maybe it's out of 100. We have schools that don't even give grades. And so there is no way that we can have a minimum. What we are doing is looking very specifically about the school where you attend. We are aided in this process by something called the school profile, and this will be sent by your guidance counselor or the college counseling office, and it gives us a sense of what the rigorous classes are offered, if there are certain progressions of humanities or math classes that you need to take, what the highest GPA is, what the mean testing scores. This provides us a very holistic sense of what is available at your school. And we look at that more than we will say that there's an actual minimum GPA. Okay, this is an interesting question. Do admissions officers consider a profile of many different extracurriculars a strength or a disadvantage? So one thing we notice with the extracurricular section is everyone is going to have a different way of presenting themselves. And there is no right collection of activities. This should be what you have done when you are not in the classroom. For some people, this may be all focused on activities from the high school, and that is wonderful. For other people who may have extensive home responsibilities, it may be much more about your home responsibilities, about a part-time job you have. We don't put any value on the activities themselves. What we are looking to do and to understand from your application is how you spend your time. And we appreciate that when you get to college, you may pursue very different activities than you have in high school, but we're really curious to see how you engage when you have spare time. And are you someone who likes to be involved in big activities, or maybe you're someone who's much more of an introvert who likes the independent research or a chance to study a foreign language through Rosetta Stone. We're really just curious to see how you spend your time. Okay, still so many questions coming through. I apologize that in the next few minutes, I'm probably not going to get to all of these. Okay, here is an interesting one. Where does the why Bowdoin fit in my supplementary essay? So we do not have the supplemental question that says, why are you interested in Bowdoin? Instead, the question we ask is based on what we call the offer of the college. And this is a poem where you will get to choose a line that you feel you resonate the most with, and then you write about that. So it's our hope in this essay that we learn a little bit about what you are most excited about as it relates to Bowdoin and the opportunities that Bowdoin likes, the opportunities and resources and programming that Bowdoin offers. And the line that you pick and the way that you choose to share with us why that is important to you can give us some good insight into why you want to come to Bowdoin. So it's a little bit different than some other schools' supplementals essays that specifically say, please explain why you want to go to X university. Okay. Some of these, I'm trying to find one good last question. Okay. What core values does Bowdoin value in their students, and how do they impact the admissions process? Um, Obviously, no student is exactly like another student, and we have a campus full of students that bring some incredible strengths. I think some of the things that we look to find in our students are a kindness. Bowdoin is a place where students are really collaborative and eager to lift each other up. And we want students who will support each other and have demonstrated different ways in their lives that they help and support others. We're looking for students who are curious, who are eager to take risks, whether that's in the classroom and trying new things, or whether it's in outside of the classroom or the way you may interact with future roommates. We are looking for people who are generous with their time, who are hardworking and eager to engage in dialogue with others. The list of values could go on. We are looking to hear what you have to share with us. And with that, I apologize that I haven't gotten to all of these questions, but I do thank you for joining in tonight or this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are joining from around the world. And as I said earlier, we will be, this has been recorded, and we are going to be sending a taped recorded version out to all of our registrants. So I wish you all the best. Please follow up if you have individual questions, but thank you so much